What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Freelance Finance Podcast. I am your host today, Amit. I'm here to get educated from my guys, Carlos and Vitaly, on Enphase, which I hear is the next best thing since sliced bread.
So success would be if at the end of this, you either buy some Enphase or sell some Palantir.
Okay.
That is the goal. So Amit sold $1,200 worth of, was it RK?
Yes. Yep.
And you bought more Palantir shares where I told
About
you
111 shares at 1080 today at Palantir.
Decent price, I would say. But if we look at the market caps of both companies, they're pretty similar. And I would say Enphase's growth is sort of guaranteed where Palantir's is not. But let's get into why that is and what's going on. And I sold out because we do have a Discord. I just want to point out I did post. I want to just.
You sold out 25K.
It wasn't 25K. It was 12K. I had two sells. One was at $12. I think I posted it here. This is a quarter of my shares, $11.18. And this was the other share at $11.97. So let's say $11.75 was my exit. I paid $25,000. I've lost over 12 grand. And I was like, look, Palantir might do well. I totally see that. Well, we have a 2x, 3x. But then I'm looking at Enphase and I'm doing the math. I'm just like, I get the same thing from something I totally believe in. And if you believe in something wholeheartedly, like Palantir, I'm like, do I need to invest in Palantir if I'm getting basically the same return that I believe in, though? The difference is belief, right? And conviction, right? Here you go. I bought some Enphase, and I was going to buy more call. I was busy that day. And I like buying these calls, too, these 2024 calls, but I bought my shares.
How much did you spend in this one? How much did you spend?
Probably 7-8 grand, I think I spent.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more, somewhere around there, 65 shares. Either way, I was going to do a call too with the rest of the money of the Palantir money, but I didn't have time that day, and the stock went up a little bit too much, and I was like, well, I'm not going to chase. I don't like chasing stocks, especially in this market. It's dumb, right? Guys, if you want to join our Patreon, join our Discord, it's right here. It's available. We have our trades. We have discussions. We have our Palantir thread. Amit is on it posting. And today we're here to talk about Enphase, just to point that out. We have a lot of threads, but a lot of Enphase discussions, and I'll go into some of my numbers here. I have spreadsheets we're going to get into and talk about just to show that there is a real bull case that can't be missed. While the prices are hammered, dollar per month is going away. So guys, if you want to be grandfathered in at only $1 to support the channel and get on our private Discord stuff, go ahead, support us. Of course, if you love this content, $4.20, it's less than a cup of coffee at this point with inflation.
Yeah.
Enphase, let's start off. And we're down at $157. Even though it was a great call and it was like a perfect call, look what this market is doing to all the stocks. This is what I feel will happen all year, maybe till Q3, Q4, that these stocks are just going to get hammered. For you, Amit, if Palantir is your thing, it's a good time to buy. But for Enphase, it's like, this is a no-brainer now. At $150 and less with the quarters they're showing, it's a no-brainer.
What's the market cap right now?
It's $21 billion market cap. The problem with this stock,
market cap.
Let's take a look at that.
25?
It's $21 billion. No, it is 20. They're both the same market cap. That's the thing. But let me show you this. Okay, there is no PE ratio for Palantir, which means they're not profitable, correct? They're growing, but they're not profitable, right?
Yes.
I can go to Enphase, $21 billion too. Huge PE ratio, okay? I'm not saying that's great, but they are profitable. And they're growing too, also at 40%, 50% plus CAGR. So
look at the EPS; it's negative.
Yeah, like it's an easy story. 1% of roofs have in America. I'm not talking about the rest of the world. 1% of roofs in America have solar. Can you imagine a world where there's like 10% of roofs or 20% of roofs? My point is, it's an easy story to sell. Deciding, do I want to burn gas and oil or do I want solar on my roof?
Even to that point, right? When gas prices go up, people start then thinking about their energy consumption, right? So even if Enphase does nothing or Tesla does nothing, just the fact that outside forces like gas prices rising are forcing people to look at their energy costs. And when they start digging around and they looking at like the number 1 or the number 2, these names pop up. That's something that I don't know that Palantir enjoys, because it's not for us, right? It's for big businesses or governments.
Right now, if you look at the stats of solar, there are 2 companies that have monopolies. And we've covered this in other videos. Maybe we'll link it right here. But Enphase and SolarEdge control like 80-90% of this entire market, not the panels. So I don't want to go into describing everything they do, but basically underneath the panels, the microinverters, there's 2 main companies. That's it. All the other little guys, what's going to happen to them over the next decade? They're going to be bought out by these 2 guys.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. They're either going to go bankrupt or they're going to be bought by these 2 guys because they can't compete. It's impossible.
You know what? I see it a lot like the alarm adaptation.
Duopoly, basically. I just want to say it's a duopoly. That's the point.
Yeah, that's what happened in the 90s with the alarm business. That was the business that I was in back then. And you would see a lot of these like mom and pop startup alarm companies. What happened to all of them? They all got consolidated into ADT, which was the monster, and then Sloman's, and that was it. That was the only two left standing. Now you have other companies like Wise or whatever offering the services, but for a long time, those companies enjoyed just full penetration, word of mouth.
And why can't there be competition against Enphase? Like, why can't other guys just step up?
Enphase now has a bigger scale along with SolarEdge. So I'm putting those two in a similar bucket, by the way. But they have such a bigger scale that they're starting to acquire these smaller companies. They're starting to build a vertical infrastructure, just like Tesla's doing. So they have charging infrastructure now. They're doing commercial installations. They have the software that installers are using. They have a network of installers. As soon as you call them up, for example, in the call, Badri says, we pick up the phone within 3 minutes and we give you answers to your questions when you're installing the product. Do you know how important that is for some guy on the ground who's just making peanuts, basically, okay? He needs to reach somebody to fix his technical problem. He can't be calling some little tiny mom and pop inverter company to try to figure out if this is going to work. He needs to get that device working and replaced if it's not working, right? So they have this network that is being built up underneath the surface of what we see as just like the users of the solar thing. That is also growing massively. So it's very hard for someone to recreate that just because they want to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the moat really comes from them having a competitive advantage as well, along with the culture of customer service. It's very hard when you're dealing with a solar panel product for someone to replicate that.
There's two customers that they're serving. Again, I've worked in this business on like the alarm and camera installation side in like the 90s, in the early 2000s. And you're a client, as the installer, you're a client of the company, but then there's the customer themselves. That's also the customer probably doesn't deal directly with Enphase, but the installers do. Now, if I'm an installer and I know that I can get them on the phone in 3 minutes, I'm going to have happy customers. Giving me happy customers is a catalyst for me to continue to use you. And then I can also say, oh, hey, we just installed something down the block from you. It gives me that confidence to be able to install it. So it's a double effect. You can have customers, actual customers, homeowners requesting the products or the company, and then you have the installers that are pushing it. It becomes a flywheel, man. That's how ADT grew. That's how Sloman's grew and eventually just ate everybody up.
The good part about this is that, okay, so let's say the customer knows nothing, which in a lot of cases, let's face it, a lot of customers don't know what solar is going on their roof. They have no idea. Yeah. But the installer does, and the installer does not want to come to your house ever again. Remember that. So that means, which system do I choose? Do I choose SolarEdge or Enphase? This is where the technology comes in, where the microinverters are per panel. So your system has a redundancy as opposed to SolarEdge, which has one main inverter. And if that inverter goes down, you're calling that installer. He has to come out and troubleshoot it and possibly replace a really expensive part of your system. That's going to take months to replace because supply chain issues and all these other things. As opposed to one panel on your system goes down with Enphase. You barely even know it unless you're checking the app. The installer in most cases will see it and it'll have to tell you, hey, you have this down. We'll come out in a month and change this one inverter, but your system's fine. We don't have to worry about it. We'll just do it in a month.
Right.
You're a techie guy. You can understand. It's a very simple thing to understand. The power that solar panels generate is DC. It's power that your batteries use. That's not what homes run on. They run on alternating current. So at some point it needs to be converted. A SolarEdge system has a single inverter that collects all the DC and converts it to AC before it goes into your electrical panel. So it is a one point of failure. If that inverter goes down, no matter what your panels are doing, you don't have anything feeding your house. Enphase's system, slightly more expensive, but what they do is they put a tiny micro inverter on each panel that converts it directly to AC at the panel. So all you have next to your solar panel is this collector box that collects all the AC. So if something happens and one of your panels goes down, then that one little inverter will go down, but all the rest of the panels are still feeding you AC current. That's a huge advantage in terms of point of failure. It's a little bit more expensive, but it happens more and more than you think.
Okay, so besides that, it's still a duopoly, two companies, you know who you're investing in, you know who's winning the race, and I think we've convinced you a little bit of why it's hard for anyone to replicate this, or no?
Yeah.
Did we?
Yes. No, that's there. It's very solid.
And the other thing to consider is this push to EV is changing the way that people see energy, right? Yeah. And our energy grid is going to be revamped. We're going to have a more distributed energy system. This is why right now it's a race to get as many homes as possible. It's a race to get the number of installs on roofs as quickly as possible in as compact an area as possible, in which case you can serve them as little mini energy hubs that eliminate risk and can provide services between those customers that you can't do with traditional energy companies right now. The entire energy grid's getting revamped as a result of the EV movement.
And you think there's a world in which Enphase could play a major role in like the grid transformation more than even just the microinverters? That's kind of like a Super Bowl case almost.
Sort of like the trajectory of where this company's going, right? If I gave you the keys to Enphase right now and I said, here's all the roofs that you have, we've got this line of sight, we've got this technology in the batteries, what would be your next step? What would be a logical next step to be able to provide more services to the customers and increase your footprint? It's just a natural next step. And it seems crazy right now because we're all used to paying Con Edison or LADWP, but like, it's more than just car companies that are getting disrupted right now.
So I guess we can get into earnings. What did they say that made you excited?
I'll play a couple of things that maybe will turn Amit a little bit more bullish about Enphase. All right, so this is Badri, the CEO. We had a good quarter. We reported record quarter revenue of $441.3 million, achieved non-GAAP gross margin of 41%, which is actually big. Remember, they're making actual hardware, so this is actually pretty good for a hardware company. And they do have a software stack, but hardware company right now, and generated free cash flow of $90 million. Our Q1 net promoter score worldwide was 68% and compared to 69% in Q4, and our North American net promoter score was 74%. So generally they're liked, right? But he's trying to do better in this. Our call wait time decreased to 3.2 minutes in Q1 compared to 8.9 minutes in Q4. Not a lot of CEOs talk a lot about this because he realizes he's also in a service business, which I do like, right? Because the installers are so important to this that the better these numbers look, we get some sense that they are doing better, right?
Makes sense.
With the growing demand for our microinverters, we remain vigilant regarding global supply chain, blah, blah, blah. But basically, and we'll go further into why, but they are growing their demand. It's not shrinking. Currently, our quarterly capacity across all contract manufacturing facilities is a little more than 5 million microinverters. And the reason this is important because last year, if we were to look at this, it was 2.5 million a quarter. Now it's 5 million a quarter. So they've doubled their production at the end of last year of 2021 to 5 million. So that's doubling production, 10 million a year to 20 million microinverters a year. Why would you do that, right? Ask yourself, why do you do that? The next thing they did is they're opening up their Europe line because they have a lot of Europe growth happening. And they're saying this line will have a quarterly capacity of approximately 750,000 microinverters starting in Q1. So this will enable a global capacity of nearly 6 million microinverters per quarter, which leads times 4 quarters. It's 24 million microinverters for the year, approximately. This is massive growth from even last year in terms of just capacity. It was around 10 million. They're growing so fast, they doubled it at the end of last year. And now they're adding another European facility to have another 4 million microinverters produced in Europe because they're
Seems like they're very international.
They are. They're expanding heavily into Europe. We continue to see strong growth in our existing markets in Europe, including Netherlands, France, and Belgium, and are also pleased with our growth in newer markets, including Italy, Spain, and Portugal. We expect our momentum in Europe to continue with more than 40% sequential revenue growth expected in Q2 versus Q1. They're telling you their European growth is growing at 40%. This is sequential growth. It's not yearly growth.
Sequential meaning quarter over quarter, basically.
Yeah, this is a crazy stat for them to grow that fast.
He said it so matter of fact on the call.
On the call, when I was listening, I just missed it. I thought it was like 40% over year. Like, yeah, okay, I already figured that out. That was a stat I had in my projections. I'm like, dude, you're growing 40% sequentially now? I can't even project that. That's not even something I even want to project. Because this is Europe, though. It's still 40, 50% overall, but I mean, like, they're expanding so fast. They're growing their facilities. They're making more microinverters. How do you not see what's happening here? They're telling you all the numbers. They're just not yelling at the top of their lungs like, hey, dude, you really should buy right now. Like, that's the only thing they're not saying. So I don't know what do you think, Amit? Because before I continue.
I mean, it's interesting. It's more than interesting. It seems like what I'm seeing is 2 levels here. Number one, they are a pseudo monopoly in a space that is going to be exponentially growing, primarily because of the low adoption of solar panels worldwide. So it's like, okay, I got that. There's no objective fact I could give to argue against that thesis. Number 2 is the nature of management and just like the minutia of how they're decreasing customer wait times, all that stuff on phone calls. That to me is like, all right, there's real culture here. It's not like TDoc type of culture. It's like actual culture there. And then 3, the sequential growth, even if it's in one sector of the world, it's lining up with the thesis that they should be growing this much, because they don't have to convince the world to get solar. Like, the world is, with Russia, Ukraine, it's gonna go there. So I mean, and then it's at a $20 billion market cap, which is, yes, the same as Palantir. Yeah, no, it's not. It's hard for me to deny the thesis at all.
It's not always black and white, like meaning I give up all my Palantir for Enphase. I'm actually not saying that.
Right.
There's a place for both. But the point is, if not having like these huge compounders that are profitable in a portfolio is sort of like dangerous in this environment. I would say it's super dangerous. And this is why we keep talking about the same stocks.
The other bit of it too is like protection for your capital. If you're looking to put a lot of money, $50,000, $100,000 into a stock, you have to look out for what's going to snipe my stock, right? So, we've argued back and forth about Facebook. You put $100,000 in Facebook, you're looking over your shoulder for something legal that could happen, something that could happen with Mark Zuckerberg. That's a danger to your capital, right? And that's part of the risk of invest. But you ask yourself, what could happen with Enphase? The video that I've been trying to upload for 2 days, we discussed this principle from Charlie Munger called inverse thinking or inverse philosophy. And he says that the human mind is much better suited to see problems than it is solutions. So what he does is list all of the ways that your investment, your startup, whatever it is, could fail, and just do the opposite of that, because your brain's going to be much better. It's going to be much better suited to see what the problems could be. So if you just apply the inverse thinking, the Charlie Munger type of thing, to say Enphase, what could go wrong for Enphase?
I was literally just about to ask, what's the bear case?
Like, what could go wrong? Is solar not going to be adopted in an exponential at an exponential rate? Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little. We don't know exactly where we are in the S curve, but the chances of it not being adopted more than it is in previous years is slim to none. So then you ask yourself, what could happen? What's the negative press that could come out for Enphase? Even if their earnings are flat, right? Or their earnings they don't grow as much. They're still going to be growing. So it just tells us where we are in the S curve. When I go and try to think about what is the danger to this investment, they're a safer investment than Tesla. You can look at Tesla and say, man, Elon Musk, one tweet, now everything that happens with Twitter is going to affect Tesla. There's a lot of things that could snipe my position. But with Enphase, like, what is it? They have the pricing power. They have the installer base. They have the wind at their back in that sense. They do have the technology. They're basically sitting at the bottom of an S curve. So you ask yourself, like, if I'm going to put $100,000 into, say, those three stocks, Tesla, Enphase, or Palantir, like, what's the least risk to your money? It's probably Enphase, even over Tesla, just because where are the negative catalysts going to come from, right?
What's the easy double? Like, that's what I go back to. Where is my easy double? And I looked at Palantir. That's why I sold out. I'm like, is that an easy double? I think that's a very hard double, because this whole environment for the next 6 months at least is going to be terrible for all of these stocks that aren't profitable. Do you agree, Amit?
Yes.
And do you think a $20 billion energy company that is 1% of installs in the whole United States, forget about the world, can't go to 2% of installs in the whole United States?
No, it's probably going to happen.
It just seems obvious that it's going to happen. And I'm 2%. I mean, it's got to be over 10. Like, solar is going to be over 10% easy. And I'm not even talking 50%, which I believe 2030 is probably half the country is plastered with solar, or the building codes themselves change to say any new construction has to include a portion of solar.
They already did that in California. In California, every home built in 2021 and beyond needs to have solar installed. And again, if there's only 2 and there's more installers, actual guys that are putting this on your roof are more comfortable with that system, it becomes something where if they did nothing, right? If Enphase just did nothing, they would continue to grow. Just off of that. Amit is gone.
He's like, this.
Because his solar panels died. He had a solar edge system.
No, you guys make a bull case.
I'm out.
I'm probably going to start at least $1,000 position. I mean, you guys make a pretty simple. I mean, to be honest, I am feeling more and more, because when you put it at the 1% and then you put it at the sequential growth, and then you're like, there's no one else really doing it. It's the same thesis for Palantir to some extent. There's no competition, and they're the backbone of the software industry. You're saying they're the backbone of every house one day. It's like
half the houses.
Right.
The difference is, once again, if I was to point out a difference, it's easy for like the state to say every new builder must put in solar. That means, every 40% of houses has to have Enphase. That's what that means, basically, right?
Right.
And I've been tracking this for a while, and I started filling in some information. And for obviously Patreons, we're going to have all of this cool stuff, which I won't tell you about right now, but we're going to share this part. And this will be in the spreadsheets section as well. So this is the revenue and the revenue percent increase over since 2019. They grew 78% in 2021. My estimated is around 53% for 2022. Estimated around 50% 2023 and on. So these are accurate numbers until the green. This part is what they're projecting themselves. They're actually saying they're going to make up to 520 million, 490 to 520 million this quarter, which is a 15% quarter-on-quarter increase.
Right.
From last quarter. And this is my middle estimate. And Enphase has a tendency to beat. So this could actually be higher than 15%. So I feel these numbers here, I'm underestimating, not overestimating. This 10%, I don't think it's going to hold. I think they're growing faster than
well, yeah, because if they do 15 a quarter, that's 60 a year basically, right?
Yeah, but it's compounded. That's right. What's even crazier. So I'm not going to assume that. I don't want to. I don't even need to. I'm just going to show you these couple of things, and then you'll see why I'm so bullish. So let's say they grow at the 50% and forget about everything else, that they might grow a little bit faster, right? So we got that. Right now we're making $1.3 billion. This is the yearly revenue, 2021. We're almost not doubling it. We're around 60% in 2022. But if you look at up to 2025, quarter four, we're at $6.7 billion. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to do some math for you in a second, but here are the two charts of the growth. Some of it is my estimated, obviously, from 2022 and on. But I fit a polynomial line. So you can fit, obviously, lines and different... You can fit trajectories to these things. And I actually went through different things, different power, logarithmic, what actually works to fit their trajectory. Because it always changes, right? It doesn't always have to be exponential, right?
Right.
Or polynomial. So basically... You could see this term. I don't know. People don't know math, but x squared grows exponentially. Listen, some people don't know math. X squared grows exponentially the more time goes on. Okay. This looks like a pretty accurate fit to their actual growth and from what they've been saying and doing since 2019, approximately. Right. And I want people at home to play some number games here and just work out what happens in 2025, 2030. I'm not going to do that for you. People at home can play along and figure out how much money they can make, all right? That's one chart. This is just the yearly chart, just to show you, and just to check, the polynomial here applies to the yearly chart as well. And this R2 is the correlation. That means this polynomial fits pretty well with their growth. Follow me so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are at 6.7 billion in 2025. So you got to wait three and a half years. So here I'm going to do a little math. Today, they're trading at a 15 price to sales. So if you take 1.38 times 15, that's their market cap, right? 20.7 billion. I'm not going to do 15. I think a fair valuation is probably closer to 10 as they still grow, but the price of sales will drop tremendously, right? Even if they're still growing 50%, I think it'll drop. So let's take the 6.7 billion times the 10 price of sales. That's $67 billion.
Right.
So you divide that by the 20, let's say 21. That's 3.2x. Is that a 10x? I don't think it's a 10x. It's in 3 years, 3.5 years. It's a 3.2x times today's stock price. What's today's stock price? 150. I don't know, $55. What do we see?
Yeah, 155.
155. That's fine. We have a $500 stock price in 3.5 years.
And what would that be market cap?
$67 billion.
20 billion?
Company.
60, okay, 60 billion.
And is this a reasonable valuation? I would say this is actually very reasonable valuation without any crazy 10x's happening. And by the way, 10x's can't happen here. I'm just saying that at 2025, this is what I expect per share. Now, if you're buying $150 overpriced stock, it's currently overpriced. The PE is too high, blah, blah, blah. This is what it should be worth at a price of sales of $500 in 2025. Whether you want to now buy or not, that is absolutely up to you. What do you think?
You've convinced me. I'm going to start a position. It's there. I mean, it makes sense. Everything I already said why it makes sense. All of it, this stuff makes sense. Now it's just a question of actually me buying it. But like, no, even the way you broke down the last numbers and how it 3x, it's very obvious. This seems very, very possible.
And it seems reasonable. It doesn't seem like I'm reaching for the moon here. That's the thing. I'm just saying if they continue this trajectory of around 50% growth, and solar, we know, I mean, 50% growth, like what, dude, 1% coverage. This is what I keep going back to. If there was 99% coverage of solar, how are you going to grow 50%? That's not going to happen.
Right. This is what we argued with Netflix. They're at 200 and whatever million. Where are they going to find new people? This is like, them having 5 million subscribers. 5 million. And you go, can they get 10 million? Can each person that 5 million tell a friend to get a Netflix subscription? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. I would say I am more invested in Enphase than Netflix. I still have my 5 shares, by the way, of Netflix. So that's still there.
5 shares too many.
I'm holding.
I'm with you, Amit.
I'm holding Netflix over Palantir. That says a lot.
I promise you that
That's
Netflix will get liquidated.
Sell that and buy some Enphase. Like,
no, honestly, yes. There is a point where I don't need to do 5 shares right now. I don't need to do that. But there is a point where Enphase drops to $130, $100,
and that Netflix is gone.
Before you go,
would cancel his Netflix subscription to put the $20 into Enphase.
We are in a clear trend right now with Enphase. Even if we're trading sideways, the bottom I feel is around $108. That's the bottom. I think if we go below that, you are looking at a real fire sale in the world. Yeah. Like I think a lot has broken down in the world. Possible, but if we are not in a fire sale for the world, $100 is the bottom. But if we're in this channel, we are right now at $146 for this channel, approximately. Let's say $130. These are good prices to get into, and anything under 150, I think it's like a no-brainer to just DCA. Everything's about DCAing now. It's not about going all in, just DCAing.
I agree. All right, you guys convinced me. I'll send you my screenshot in the Discord that you guys can join for $1 a month in the Patreon.
That's going away. The $1 membership is going away
soon.
Okay, why don't we just
inflation, man? It's now $2.
We've been saying soon for a month. At the end of this week, it's gone.
It's gone. At the end of this,
that's it. It's just gone. At the end of this week, it's gone. It's going to be 50 cents after that. For May, when we go to May, it's right.
It's $4.20, and that might be going to $4.99, baby. $4.99.
$3. All right, guys. Awesome stuff. I'll start my position, and I'll let you guys know when I do it.
Love your shirt, by the way. Love your shirt, Squid Games.
I appreciate it. You know, it's gotta represent for his 5 shares. All right, I'm out.
All right, he's gone. Thank God. We could finally talk about him behind his back. I did want to share this. This last thing is that the actual call, and just a little snippet for you, Carlos, if you haven't heard the call.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the questions. So first one for me, there's been, just broader concern in the market about economic deceleration entering Q2 and beyond, just globally. You've already highlighted a meaningful 40% sequential revenue growth in Europe. So, we know demand is rocking and rolling over there. However, I was wondering if you could just give us a sense of what you're hearing from your customers in the U.S., specifically in April. I'm trying to get a sense if you're seeing any signs of deceleration in U.S. resi demand in April, or it seems like, demand is still strong within the U.S., based on your most recent discussions.
Okay. Yeah, demand is very strong in the U.S. As simple as that.
Yeah, demand is very strong in the U.S.
It's as simple as that.
Okay, I'll play the rest and then we'll discuss this because, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh my God. Let me play the full question because I know people are going to go up in arms that I stop this.
Yeah, demand is very strong in the U.S. As simple as that. And that's why we, told you that our, demand is well north of our higher end of guidance. And it is broad-based. We work with a number of installers of all shapes and sizes. We work with long-tail installers. We work with big installers. And everywhere the demand is up. And we are continuing to take market share in the U.S. So, so that's good.
The understatement. Oh, yeah, that's good. We're taking demand. Who's he taking demand from?
The thing is, he doesn't necessarily have to be taking it from SolarEdge. These are new customers.
But he said he was. He did say he's taking demand from some. He didn't say who. It's implied that there's somebody
demand from competing companies. I heard him say he's taking demand.
Well, check it out. It says, okay, demand is up everywhere. The demand is up, and we are continuing to take market share, which is taking from other people.
Right.
Take market share in the U.S.
I guess yeah. I guess no matter what, even if it's only 1% penetration, that's still 100% of the pie. So yes. But he could be taking market share, growing market share.
This is SolarEdge.
Yeah. Well, he's growing market share against SolarEdge, yes. But it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't buy SolarEdge, by the way. I'm actually going to buy some long-term calls for SolarEdge because both are going to do fine. But he's literally saying we are taking market share. He doesn't want to say who because he's a nice guy. But he should be like, we're destroying these mother.
Right. I mean, okay. I see what you're saying, but in the reality of it is, unless he's taking their customers, meaning like someone had a SolarEdge system, is unhappy, and then they pull it out. That was me. I had a SolarEdge system.
That was actually you.
That was actually me. I had a SolarEdge system that failed multiple times and eventually went to Enphase. Unless that's happening, you're not stealing market share or taking market share. You're growing market share. End of the day, we're just splitting hairs here. The company's growing. They're getting more.
Yeah.
they're growing. Yeah.
And he's like, that's good.
Right. And he's like, and that's very good. What he does is he tells you the good news,
man.
but he doesn't walk you that final step being like,
there's no hype. There's no hype.
Yeah,
to it.
he's not hyping it. He's just giving you the stats. He's not telling you, so our stock should this, or our shareholders will benefit from it. He doesn't get into that.
So once we look at that, make sure we have enough cash for the M&A pipeline. And then we look at, okay, if we still have cash left over, how is our, what's the current share price? How is the current share price? And is the share price below a conservatively calculated intrinsic value? And it's nothing more than taking a page from Warren Buffett's book. We do exactly what he recommends, and it just makes sense for us. So we did, for example, last year we bought back, Mandy, we bought back 3.2 million shares.
Correct.
We bought back 3.2 million shares last year, bought back at $155 a share. And if the share price goes down, we will consider opportunistic scenarios like that to do more buyback, provided number one and number two are taken care of.
This is important because he said when we do our internal calculations of what the stock is worth, if it's under $150, not $1.55, $155 a share, we buy back shares.
$1.55 a share. That didn't.
Yeah, it's $155. Right. It's just the transcription.
Yeah.
It's $163 right now. You guys decide. This is the final thing. At least I'll leave you with. Is it worth DCAing? When Badri himself says it's under 155, it's a buy. He's saying that without saying, just like I did, at under 155, it's a buy, and we're going to buy our shares back.
He's saying that 155 is the intrinsic value. That's the buoy point. He's telling you that,
and he'll buy back shares.
Right.
If it goes.
He's saying the company is worth the intrinsic value 150, or maybe a little lower. That's great, because what company do you know that's trading at their intrinsic value?
I do want to point one negative out before we leave. So no one should rush out and go crazy, because if we look at the statistics, the PE, even though the forward PE is 50, it's going down pretty fast, as you can see. The current PE is 150, the trailing one. Forward PE 50 in this market. Look, is there a chance we go down? I would say there is a chance we go lower. What do you think, Carlos?
It's that PE compression as they start to get penetration. I mean, they're at 1%, so we'll have to talk about it when they're like at 40%. What's the PE then? It won't be 50. It won't be 50 then. It might be like 10.
I think they're going to stay in this 50 plus, maybe even 100, depending on fast their growth is, for a long time. But I do see a situation this year that 50 might be too much this year, like a forward PE I'm talking about. If people don't want to buy growth stocks, they just don't want to buy growth stocks. That's the bottom line. The story matters, right? So we have to see what happens. That's why I'm saying dollar cost average. And I have been. I bought, like I said, another $8,000 of Enphase, and I'm willing to buy more. But I do want to buy it under 150, me personally.
Well, now it's 160. My average is like 140 now. It's still in that buy zone for me. If this is your first time on the channel, this was a sort of comprehensive case for why Enphase is a good buy. And I mean, the purpose of this video was really to talk to someone who's not at all in Enphase, someone who's all in Palantir, and to see if someone with that much conviction in another stock can at least see the bull case here.
It's an easy bull case. And I keep going back to the narrative matters, that I can tell this to my father and he understands why solar is winning.
Well, people walk around, they see solar panels on the roof. You see that panel there? They start to see it more. And I'm telling you, these rising gas prices are an amazing, amazing catalyst for a company like Enphase. Indirectly, but as people start to adapt more EVs, they start thinking more about electricity and the cost of it. And then what else can I power from it, right? Like heat pumps and things in the home, people switching over, or in that movement in like the 90s, 2000, when you were seeing more electric stoves. This has been happening. And I think these rising gas prices are just going to boil it over.
Okay, guys. So if you like this episode, hit like and subscribe, which we never say.
Notification bell, join the Discord, join the Patreon. We know it's a lot to ask, but if you enjoy this content, it really does help us keep the train going.